My name's Kate Ancketill, and I'm the CEO and founder of GDR. So we are business futurists based in the UK, but with an international remit, looking at all forms of innovation in retail, brands, and experiences. So I'm your wayfinder to the future of retail in particular. So if you can bear with me just one moment while I do the screen sharing thing. And off we go. So I'm going to talk about the big disruptors. And boy, have they been big. We have all been living through the 3 Cs, the COVID, conflict, and climate crises. And I think we all know that these are extremely challenging for our businesses. Now, I know that many people feel that the COVID thing is over, and hopefully it is. But we do have the legacy in many cases of finding it even more difficult to acquire and retain retail staff and logistics staff, because there's that greater division, isn't there, between lucky people like me who can work anywhere with a laptop and Wi-Fi, and, you know, slightly less lucky in some respects, people who have to work in a particular somewhere, like in retail or in a distribution warehouse, because they now see that other people around them have more flexibility and a more hybrid experience of work. So that's made it harder to recruit in retail and experiences. And that's a long and ongoing, I think, legacy of COVID. And of course, you know, those 4-day week requirements of many people, very difficult for the employer, and disrupted supply chain. So this is all still hanging around from COVID, and there may be more to come, I'm afraid. Pandemics may not be every 100 years in future because of melting glaciers, releasing unpleasant things, zoonotic spillover as we encroach on the natural environment. We just have to maintain that muscle memory that we developed during COVID so that we can pivot quickly if there's another pandemic. Now, the Russian conflict in Ukraine may feel a long way away for you, but it's definitely put the brakes globally on the recovery from COVID. And, you know, whether or not you're affected by shortages in things like energy and wheat and fertilizer, you will definitely be affected by things like microchip shortages, superconductor shortages. Half of the world's neon was created in 2 Ukrainian factories. Now, we can live without neon signs, but we can't live without the neon that is required by lasers in order to manufacture superconductors. So that's affecting and will affect shortages in the creation of technology going forward. And just to mention that in Germany and some of the European countries, there is a very noticeable change to the cadence of life as a result of the Russian invasion. In Germany, at night, the lights are all off on the major buildings that would have previously been lit up. The water's cold in municipal buildings when you wash your hands. The showers are cold in swimming pools. And, you know, we're seeing all sorts of repercussions and changes, I think, long term in our lifestyles. And of course, climate is the big one. Climate change is obviously the biggest issue for all of our lifetimes. And it reminds us, I think, constantly with the weather and so on, the unusual situations that we're experiencing, that we are going to have to live with more finite resources, because we're all experiencing more extreme weather. We all have net zero targets to deal with as businesses. That implies costs and is difficult to achieve. And, you know, we are pushing the boundaries of nature beyond the point of no return. Even the richest countries in the world, North America, has blackouts in places like Texas, brownouts in the richest place in the world, which is California. So nobody is left untouched. France has a national electricity forecast every day for the whole country, straight after the main weather forecast. And that tells you for the next 4 days whether you have to reduce your power usage if you don't want to have blackouts in your area. So typically they all pull together and they reduce the power usage by about 5% when they get a yellow or red warning. Now at GDR, we have an assembly of experts who are scientists, historians, psychologists, sociologists, people that are outside of the normal kind of retail experience. And Dr. Richard Young is a chemical physicist who's advised us on the implications of shortages of rare earth minerals, of which there are 17, and they're not at all rare, apparently, they're all over the world, but you basically can't move forward with climate mitigation. You need them for solar panels, wind turbines, EV batteries, and you need them for every item of technology that we currently use, you know, laptops, mobile phones, etc. And basically says there aren't enough of them. There's not enough in the world at the moment that we have access to. And the problem is whoever controls them controls technology and climate mitigation. And guess what? China controls about 90% of them at the moment, with Russia controlling most of the rest. So there is a serious geopolitical issue here, and they will take some time to right the situation. So what we're saying to people is that no matter how rich and powerful you are as a country, no matter who you are, you can no longer rely on an abundant supply chain of power, strategic raw materials, and climate stability that you previously may have expected. And so we are entering an era which we are calling the end of abundance, I'm afraid. It's tough, but it's better to think about these things in a clear-minded way and then start to prepare, because basically we are now just going to have to do more with less. Now, we don't make these things up. This phrase has been around. We have an AI we've been training for 3 years to look at 5 million sources on the internet in 100 languages. And it noted that more people started using this phrase, not surprisingly, on the 24th of February last year when Russia invaded Ukraine. There are signs of the times, as I've mentioned. There's going to be that lag while we wait for the market to rebalance the access to rare earth minerals away from China and Russia. That may take a few years, and that will have cost implications, which will have implications for, you know, cost of living for consumers. In Europe, many European leaders are talking about this new phrase, energy sobriety. And it's about everyone pulling together, reducing their energy use, businesses, consumers, people at home in the UK, very cold winters. We do sit there with big coats on, using hot water bottles, because the cost of heating our homes has gone up fourfold. And so there is a resetting of values, expecting less. We go to restaurants that are so cold, you continue wearing your coat. But you'd rather the restaurant stayed open. So that's a real change in people's mindset. I think we've reached peak convenience. So there's been a decline in many of those 10-minute services that were so growing pre-COVID, when people were willing, and during COVID, people were willing to spend extra for convenience. And during a cost of living crisis as we have now, they are less willing to pay that extra money for super fast delivery. And so there's been a lot of consolidation in that industry. And there's the end now of acceptable obsolescence in things like electronics and clothing and pretty much everything. There has to be some circularity built in order for it not to be obsolescent. And these are the signs of the times, but it's not all gloomy. There is bloom on the horizon. And I think if we just think about ways to mitigate these trends, then as businesses, we can make sure that we come out on top. And actually, this is the best time to be a business, because actually we are the most trusted entity, according to Edelman's Trust Barometer, compared to NGOs, government, media. People want companies, corporations, businesses, retailers to step up and show leadership in, sorting out these problems that we're all facing. So we have 3 trends that are our top 3 trends for mitigating the end of abundance. The first is power shifts. Now, new tech allows us to shift from global friction, and we are seeing a shift away from globalization generally, towards a more decentralized and resilient point of view. Inclusive generation, the move away from offsetting, which at its simplest is damaging the economy, the environment, but planting trees at the end to correct it, towards a more of an insetting mindset, which is about correcting all the things that are happening in the supply chain as they go along, so that you don't do the damage in the first place. And finally, the dopamine economy. Cheer people up to get them through tricky times. So looking at that first trend of power shifts, the image on the left is that shipping container that you might recall in 2021 in the Panama Canal that got stuck and basically clogged up global trade for 6 months, not 6 months, 6 days, and reminded everybody how dangerous it was to have a huge and complex international supply chain. And everybody really at that point started to think, is that sensible? And should we try and simplify and localize our supply chain? And so we are definitely seeing a move towards decentralization. Even Apple, that has been the most controlling brand on the planet, has just said that they will allow you to rent or buy their tools and manuals to fix your own Apple devices at home. This is probably ahead of legislation, particularly in places like France, that are already starting to address this. Now, back to our AI system and the analysis of global trends and the wording that people are using online. So we see a growth in the use of the self-sufficiency movement, for example. And not surprisingly, when times are tough, people do want to generate incremental income. So in Colombia, Brazil, and Mexico, we have the Mooney next day shopping and delivery platform, a bit like the old Tupperware kind of programs, where in this case you have 15,000 community leaders who invite their local population to join a WhatsApp group. That gives them a link, which gives them access to effectively what looks exactly like an e-commerce shop, but giving them access to wholesale prices. And if they order before 8 on one day, their community leader delivers those items to their house the next day, and they pay in cash, because this is for people, I believe that's 50% of people in Latin America, who don't have access to e-commerce because they don't use credit cards. So this is a great way to bring wholesale prices for cash payers to their front doorstep, bringing what was at the center, hypermarkets, people needed transport, credit cards, smartphones, etc., bringing that to the periphery. And in California, very challenged by these brownouts, huge problems with power. They are seeing a collaboration between Tesla and the local power company, allowing Tesla owners who have their own solar panel to essentially sell energy back to the grid whenever there is extreme pressure on the electricity grid, and they earn $2 per kilowatt hour. And in California, again, this is the world's first cryptocurrency-based, blockchain-based mobile phone company. So you as a consumer can buy a mobile phone mast, which might be the size of a pizza box for $1,000 or a slightly bigger one for $10,000. You put it on your roof or your balcony, and basically you emit a mobile signal for your neighbors. They obviously pay to use the service, and you get paid in crypto. So we start to see with new technologies the possibility for regular consumers to not just be consumers, but to be producers of wealth. And although NFTs are in a winter at the moment compared to last year, where there was obviously a lot of froth in the market, particularly for unique art, we think there is very interesting opportunity for NFTs as a loyalty mechanism, as well as to be used as a crowdfunding mechanism. Fly Fish Club is opening later this year in Manhattan. It's a private dining club. And we covered this last year when they were selling NFT memberships, and they raised $14 million before the venue was even open. So obviously that contributed to its build costs. And then once it's open, you will only be able to go to this restaurant if you are an NFT holder, but you can take your friends, obviously. And then you just pay with normal money when you're there. And because it's an NFT, it's a digital asset. You can rent it out when you're on holiday. You can sell it if somebody else, might possibly even pay more for it than you paid for it. It might be an asset that accrues in value. So some very interesting ways to conduct business here, which are, again, moving power from the central banks, for example, to a more decentralized system. On to our second inclusive regeneration trend. And I think this is an incredibly important one. We used to talk about sustainability and ESG, and now I think regenerative futures is a more interesting way to think about this. So something can't just be good for improving your carbon footprint. It has to also be socially just and inclusive, for example. So we're seeing some nice examples here in Boston, in the US, a collaboration between Stop and Shop, the supermarket, with Visa and a local charity. So if you have diabetes and you go to the local clinic, medical clinic, you might get a prescription of a prepaid credit card or debit card, and you can only use the money that's prepaid on that to buy fruit and vegetables in your local grocery or any shop near you. So that's a really good way to, I think, bring power to the people, provide a service, a prepaid debit card, and recognizes that there are some solutions which are alternative but probably more effective to some of the health problems that many people are facing. And here in Colombia, this is the best example I've seen, actually, I think, of a supermarket reducing its carbon footprint by 35%, they claim, by this year. And they claim to be Colombia's first carbon neutral supermarket. Now, I'll just play the video. It tells its own story. But this is, I think, the best example that I've seen for a supermarket so far, reducing its footprint.
Y en la calle 140 en Bogotá nace la nueva frescura. Bienvenidos al nuevo Carulla Fresh Market 140. Un mundo lleno de motivos para vivir más fresco y seguro. Aquí nace un lugar en el que todas y todos somos bienvenidos. Aquí, más que un restaurante, nace un espacio pensando en quienes saben que el sabor es tan importante como el origen de los ingredientes. Aquí nace un espacio que nos muestra que al cuidarnos podemos cuidar del planeta. Aquí nacen nuevas acciones que demuestran que nuestro compromiso con el planeta es cada vez más grande. Aquí nace una forma de comprar más fácil y rápida. Nuevo Carulla Fresh Market 140. Aquí nace la nueva frescura. Bienvenidos a vivirla. Carulla, la vida más fresca.
And here we have in China, Alibaba's new carbon reduction reward program. So that's just rewarding ordinary activities that their customers make, things like uploading proofs of carbon saving behaviors, like, kind of taking the bus rather than driving, or recycling their boxes, or not having disposable cutlery for takeaways. And all of those accrue activities accrue points on the Alibaba e-commerce platform. So it actually earns them kind of rewards in a physical way. And in the US, Subway, the fresh fast food company, has partnered with a local EV charging logistics company. And so for their new stores, which are drive-ins, and their refurbished ones, they will make them into charging oases, where they will have multiple charging points, picnic spots, Wi-Fi, nice toilets, green space, lots of goodies. And, you know, you would definitely, if you had this kind of offer, you would make a swerve to this brand rather than another, certainly if you had an electric car. And here we have a Scottish beauty brand, not a tiny little company. This is quite a sizable company called Faith in Nature. And they are the first that we have ever seen in the world to do this. They have put nature on their board with full voting rights in the form of a lawyer, a human person, and his or her job is simply to vote in a way that is in the interests of the climate at all points of the company's operations. So we think that's extremely interesting, and that does show real kind of leadership in the industry. And finally, on to the dopamine economy. So if you're not familiar with the term, dopamine is the happy hormone, which you experience when you're anticipating something joyous or experiencing it right now. Now, whenever we have a bad economy and people are, you know, tightening their belts, have less to spend, of course, it's a well-known effect of cheering yourself up with small indulgences like the lipstick effect, for example. But I think in modern times, we're seeing a more kind of immersive set of experiences, particularly in luxury, but across the board, which obviously are often deploying a bit more technology than we had access to in the past. And interestingly, Warren Buffett, who knows a thing or two about investing, says that when inflation is high, the best thing to invest in is yourself. There's no tax to pay on that. And that investment will eventually pay off when times improve. And so we're seeing some very nice examples in retail of, you know, what we've all been talking about for so many years, which is pure experience. People will pay for fun. Wow Madrid is a reinvention of the challenged sector of department stores. They make a point of saying we are not a store, we are a destination. And that includes things like live music, cooking school, Instagram studio, digital museum, you name it. But they are also a store. They sell actual products, but they are direct consumer products, which are not usually available in regular stores. So there's always a reason to go back with a highly rotating inventory. So they kind of tick all the boxes for modern retail. But let's have a look at their own promotional video. So that wasn't the actual shop, but that was them giving the feeling that they want the department store to give you. But we have actually been to visit it ourselves, and it was really impressive, really very engaging, particularly for its target audience of Gen Z. Now, we have experiences all over the world. They're in Dubai, New York, I've seen them, Japan do some beautiful ones. This is in the UK, and it calls itself Dopamine Land. And what they have in common is they're not really retail, they're not really museums, but they're a combo of the two, and you pay to get in. I've always said that truly experiential retail is worth paying to get in. In this case, for about 30 minutes, you pay about £18. You know, they're not cheap. And then you experience, you know, light and sound and, you know, music and smell, and, you know, you play games and it's Instagrammable, and people go on dates and they take the kids, and you know, in this case you can have, what are they called, pillow fights, and it's really grown-ups being kids, but they're designed to make people happy and give them a record of being happy, which is obviously even more important these days. And I thought this was very interesting. This is a British TV channel called ITV, which just last year launched a new shopping platform, but it's also a media platform. So it also interestingly combines entertainment with shopping, which is definitely a big trend anyway. But I think it's worth seeing how they talk about themselves. They're called Woo for a start. But they say they're on a mission to turn Generation Anxious, which is Gen Z, into Generation Zen. And they want to deliver wellness through entertainment, products, and storytelling. And they want their platform for shopping and entertainment to be an antidote to the toxic news cycle. And I think what's very interesting, and a simple thing to take inspiration from, is you can shop by mood, for example. So whether you want to chill out, whether you want to be trippy, I'll let you read the others yourself. It is for grown-ups, it's an adult site. But I think interesting the way they're approaching that, making people happy. And again, back to our AI system. Now, of course, you would have heard of generative AI and this huge explosion that we've had with ChatGPT, and how many people are worried about their jobs disappearing overnight. It's definitely something that we are seeing trending in terms of our AI's research on the internet. And of course, the metaverse is going through a winter, as I mentioned earlier, with NFTs, but AI is absolutely exploding in terms of interest and importance. And this last case study, I think, is, I have to say, I'm super impressed. And I talked about this very recently at the world's biggest music conference for people who, you know, sell musical instruments and so on. And they hadn't heard of this yet. So, and that was in the US. So this is very new. It's just launched, I think, in the US only. And it's called Meet Your DJ. So this is Spotify, by the way, using ChatGPT technology, generative AI, to give you your own personalized free DJ. So we know, of course, that Spotify has already, for many years now, you know, curated a playlist for you, which is perfect for the kind of thing it knows you like. Now, this has just strung all of those songs together with a verbal kind of connection between each song, which is your DJ, but mentioning you by name and referencing things you did last year. And it just sounds unbelievably personalized. And if this is the way that, you know, customer service is going, then, you know, it is absolutely extraordinary. Let's have a listen.
Hey Max, what's going on? I'm X, and from this moment on, I'm going to be your own personal AI DJ on Spotify. Let's go. Up next, I know you've been on a summer song kick lately, so I went back for some of your old summertime favorites. See if it warms you up. Next up, some of the music you had on a lot back in 2018.
Do you think of me? Walking out there.
All right, Max, let's get you out of your feels and switch up the vibe. You've been into dance music lately. I got this brand new release to get you moving. Introducing DJ, the best of Spotify made just for you, one tap away. Powered by AI, delivered by me, your very own DJ.
Amazing, isn't it? So these are some takeouts. We are living in an age that's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. VUCA, apparently a phrase originally used in the military. And so we need to build resilience by leveraging the power shifts, decentralizing wherever possible, simplifying the supply chain wherever possible, and empowering, if we can, our consumers to generate incremental wealth, or at least reduce their costs. And we need to move towards inclusive regeneration. Try to be a leader. The consumers want us to be leaders. The planet requires it as well. Making regenerative easy wherever possible. You know, consumers don't like inconvenience. Putting sustainability on everyone's kind of top to-do list. And embracing the dopamine economy, thinking about moods over transactions, feel-good luxuries and experiences, and putting wellness first, because that's always the last thing that people will stop spending money on. So that is me done. Do please join the Q&A session on May the 4th, and we will discuss your comments. Thank you very much for listening.